So, I think I found a pretty good project to work with. If my voice sounds a little bit different, well, I was baking in the sun for 3 days during my army training, so I got a little heat exhaustion. I'm a little sick from it still, but I'll manage. So, before I begin this video, there is going to be some stuff, controversy in there that people may not like, that you may go, oh, you're just being a racist. I'm telling you, just hear me out and just follow through. And this is just rumor, but Disney has spread the idea that they want to take Professor X and Magneto from the X-Men series and race swap them. And for people who excuse me, for people who don't know, race swapping is you take a established character and you make them a different color. You know, like you take Wolverine and you make them black, or you take Black Panther and you make them white, stuff like that. You know, it works both ways, and we see it happen every day, especially with a lot of the traditionally red-headed characters. They're being race swapped for brown or black people. Don't know why, but you know, that's just how it is. Anyway, how do I feel about this? Personally, I think it's unnecessary, and I think a lot of people, especially if you watch these videos, you'll realize they're just doing it to go, hey, look how woke we are, so progressive, so forward-thinking, and they're just sitting. It's a circle jerk. You know, they're just a circle jerk, staring at themselves in the mirror going, yeah, we're a good producer. We're a good producer. God. Anyway, no, it doesn't need to happen. Because one thing is, the X-Men's getting rebooted, as a lot of us know, but things, they have to do this reboot very carefully. Because, you know, the X-Men has already been an established franchise. Has it been a confusing franchise? Yeah. But it's already been established, and if you are going into this mindset of going, oh, we're just going to race swap everybody and make everything different, that's going to turn off more people. Look, Phase 4 of Marvel is already being called the woke phase, the whammon phase. The last thing you need to do is go into the next phase, race swapping characters when you're trying to rebuild continue on the Marvel franchise. It's not going to work, Disney. But the way they're probably going to do this is the backstory does need to change for Professor X and Magneto, because it's hard to believe that a 100-year-old Holocaust survivor is still running shenanigans today. You know, stuff does need to change with their backstory, but the way they're going to do it is more of like, they're going to sit there and they're going to have it to where, like, Magneto was born and raised in South Alabama, and, you know, his family was being lynched or killed by the KKK or being oppressed or something like that. Unfortunately, stuff like that did happen, and they'll probably do it where Magneto was a victim of racism, like actual, legit racism. And then Professor X could have grown up in the northern states to where, you know, he saw the segregation, but he believed a peaceful, passionate area can go, you know, is the way to do it, while Magneto believes, you know, fuck these white people, fuck these humans, fuck everything, you know, we will get our rights by force. Because they'll probably have it at some point where maybe they had like some kind of metal pole or something and they were beating a black person up, and Magneto like reaches out and takes the pole from their hands, and they're all freaking out and go, wait a minute, what if there's more of these fuckers? They'll probably do something like that. Now, honestly, that doesn't sound too bad, but the thing is, it will kind of take away from Magneto, mainly because Magneto's always been Jewish. You know, he was a Holocaust survivor, and that's how people know him. You know, being Jewish, it wasn't necessarily part of Magneto's identity, but, you know, it was a part of him. And if they have it to where Professor X and Magneto is running around the civil rights era for, you know, human right or mutant rights, because they can easily make it to where the civil rights goes beyond, like, you know, blacks and whites and coming together and not being segregated. It could also be like the mutants are involved now. You know, the mutants are trying to get civil rights too. Like, hey, we're here. We want civil rights as well. And you can have it where Professor X is working with, like, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., saying, hey, I really love your messages of peace, let's work together. While Magneto could be the whole, working with Malcolm X, saying, yeah, you're right, mutant power, we gotta go out there and we gotta fuck shit up. They'll probably do it something around like that. At face value, that doesn't sound too bad. I mean, most people can probably sit there and understand that, okay, I can see why Magneto is more militant, and I can still understand why Professor X is more, pacifist. But I thought of a way they could do it, change their backstories, but still have the motivation and still keep them as white people. Now, I can already hear the clicks or someone saying, oh, you're just a racist for not knowing this. I'm telling you, just hold on that. Hear me out. So as I said earlier, they have to do this reboot of the X-Men right. And part of that means you got to keep some of the X-Men characters as they were. That it's got to be done. I mean, if Disney wants to draw in the next generation of Marvel fans, it's got to be done that way. Because, it's going to be the parents, the bigger, the older siblings that are going to take the children to see this. Anyway, so keep Magneto white and Jewish, but still give him a tragic backstory. How can you do this? I thought of a way. So you could easily have it where Magneto was kidnapped by radical Islamists, on a jihad. People, because radical Islamists, they will go around and they will butcher villages. It's happened before. Even American soldiers who fought will tell you that, yeah, the terrorists went around and they butchered soldiers. So you could easily have had it where Magneto, he got captured by jihadists. They were torturing him, killing his family even. Sitting there and brutalizing people all because they weren't Muslims or they weren't radical believers of Islam. Or in Magneto's case, because they were Jewish. So, it could simply have that they were sitting there executing people, charging the weapon, going bam, bam, and Magneto releases his powers at that point. Draws the guns away or completely bends the guns to where it doesn't work because, he wants to try to save people, of which at that point the jihadists, they choose not to kill him, but they do kind of study him like, what's going on here and how can we use this to our benefit? So they eventually take Magneto in as a slave to use his powers for their own benefit so they could conduct, more jihads. And then they start wondering, what if there's more of these people, more of these unique creatures? We could get them and we can increase our power, increase more terrorist attacks. And then it could be eventually later on, Magneto breaks out, he saves himself, and that would go on the path where he's like, humans will just use mutants as slaves. They'll just use us to gain power, our special abilities to gain powers. Now, I can already hear the click-hitting, but I'm talking, just think about it for a second. You can't go off Nazis forever. This would be a way to introduce Magneto, because 1, you would keep his Jewish identity. 2, you could easily keep him white. 3, he would be a slave to jihadists. He would be the slave. And that's why his motivation would come in through, 1, it would be a reason, like, as an X-Men First Class, he was hunting down the former Nazis that used him, that manipulated him to hunt them down. You could at least do it where Magneto escapes at a young age, but later on his passion is to go down and hunt down these terrorist heads that used him and his mutants because, they just used them to increase their terrorist attacks to help spread fear. That would give Magneto the reason to, 1, think that humanity is just evil and they're just going to use mutants. We can never coexist side by side, but mutants are superior. That right there would be the motivation behind Magneto. And you can buy into that, because the jihadists, it's something everyone can relate to now. Because the past almost damn near 20, maybe even 30 years, the biggest enemy on the planet hasn't been a uniform military, it's been terrorists, it's been jihadists, unless I'm not going to say that, this isn't a political video. Anyway, that you could use to build Magneto. And for Professor X, you could easily have it to where he was working with the civil rights movie. You know, he was the white guy, he was using his mind controls, and you could easily have it to where he was sitting there helping Martin Luther King, trying to build mutant rights together with people working together. You know, because you could easily have it where he was influenced by these very powerful and very passionate and pacifist people. That's why he believes that mutants and humans can come together, but we can't force that. You know, it can come together naturally. You know, eventually he runs into Magneto, and you know they do form a friendship where they're like, Magneto comes to America because it could be like some of the jihadists came to America hoping to spark a revolutions of like Malcolm X or other black communities during the civil rights movement that are sparking up. Magneto finds this, and you know he uses that to go to America and hunt him down. Where he runs into Professor X, where they kind of have the X-Men First Class, where they bounce back and forth, and they're trying to sit there and find a medium, because they both want what's right for mutant kind. It's just their levels and ideology how to get there is completely different. But if you add that element into it, you could easily do it to where, I mean, I could see this working. Like, I can see this working. And after this type of reboot, and you go into modern times, you know, Professor X has slowly been building the X-Men, you know? He's been making his academy, slowly increasing the X-Men, and eventually something happens to where he has to reveal, you know, he has to reveal the X-Men, and then Magneto has working in the shadows, you know, building his legion of mutants until eventually he thinks he has enough power to strike. Because one, you go from the young men, or maybe even teenage level, maybe not teenage, like young men of the civil rights era, you know, so let's just say like they're 21 or something like that, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s, the 2000s, you know, they'll be like 60 or 70 years old if they go down that right, which is about how old they are in the show. You know, they're old and they're withered, but they're wise and they're powerful, you know, because they've had all these years to build up. Look, I don't know about y'all, but I can see something like this working, and honestly, something like that could work. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the civil rights era. If they want to keep them a bit younger, they can move it to where after the civil rights, like, you know, during the Vietnam War in the 70s or the 80s, something like that. But I really think that, I know they won't do it. Disney's not going to do it because they don't want to piss off the Islamic community. Even if you use that, hey, these guys are clearly terrorists, clearly radical Islamists, and they clearly want to use mutants to increase their terrorist attacks, they won't do it because it's going to offend someone in the Muslim community or someone in the Islamic religion. I don't know. You have to walk on eggshells with this people. But I'm just saying, this type of storyline, it could work. Because remember, what made Magneto work was he was a Holocaust survivor. He saw the worst of that time frame. You just bump it up to where he was just kidnapped and tortured by radical Islamists. He still would have that motivation, and he would still keep his Jewish identity. And with Professor X, just have it to where he was inspired by people of the civil rights era, and that's why he believes that's the proper way to go for mutant and human relationships. Why Magneto is more, no, we need to crush these humans because they don't trust us. It would still be the conflicting interest of Professor X and Magneto. This would be such a more interesting storyline than just making them both black and facing racism every single day. Because I think what I thought of in just, you know, a short amount of time, like I heard about this, and you know, because I've been catching up on my videos, but I heard about this, I'm just like, I think this would be a more excellent idea. You can keep the characters the same, still have the reasons why they are fundamentally, and it's just, it works. I honestly think this works. I think it works a lot better than just race swapping them and going down the biggest threat was white supremacy and Nazis and KKK, and that's why Magneto's all evil, and it's the same virtue signaling that we get all the time now. Anyway, I like my idea. I really think it can work. Guys, do y'all have any other ways that y'all think it'd work? You know, feel free to comment. Let's talk about how would you like to see the X-Men brought into the MCU? What is your theories? How would you bring them into the next big phase coming up? Hey, let's talk. This is an interesting topic. I want to hear what y'all have to say about it. Me, I really do like my idea, and as I say, it gives the same motivations the character has, and you don't got to change anything. Just change the tragic events that happen. Simple, It's creative thinking, something that a lot of Hollywood writers are lacking in nowadays. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and hey, glad to be out of the woods. So, here's to another glorious month until I do it all again. All right, later, folks.